CueCam 2 is out now. Look, this is the, this is supposed to be behind me. It's the build script from when I released it. So today I'm going to tell you what it is, why I changed it, and like how I pulled it off. And I'm going to talk about some markdown and some bits and pieces. But yeah, it's here. And this was a half-hour build process, so this is playing at 32 speed, so I'm just going to drag that through. Look, there it is, uploading all the bits, and then uploads it, and then you've got it. Imagine that. But first, let's have some title credit. Hey, this is CueCam App Lab number 65. I've just realised I'm on the wrong mic. Okay, this should be a bit better. I was testing a microphone, stereo microphone, so this should be a much nicer sounding microphone. This is CueCam App Lab number 65, and this week is all about CueCam 2.0. I'm Michael Forrest. I built Shoot Video Pencil, CueCam Presenter, and generally this is my company of one person, so I can sort of do everything. And hi Lorenzo, thanks for joining. So today we're going to talk about, so there's a blog post, so if you've come from the blog post, welcome to the playback. I thought I'd try and turn the blog post into a presentation today, so I spent about 5 hours doing that today, and CueCam made that easier in some ways, but then I kept tweaking the odd thing to make it easier along the way. But yeah, CueCam 2.0, markdown-ish webcam presentations. First up, what is CueCam Presenter? It's a Mac app that makes it easy to present rich content on your webcam. You can show pictures, text, video, share your screen, second camera, and control other apps. It's also a presentation editor where you can create a sequence of these smart cue cards to feed a teleprompter and display content as you speak. And it works seamlessly with Shoot Pro Webcam to turn your iPhone into a webcam, teleprompter, and extra screen. And you can use it with your iPad with an app called Video Pencil that lets you control your presentation and draw on your screen using your iPad. So that's how we do things like that, and we can draw around this, and we can do all sorts of fun telestration stuff. This talk is about markdown-ish presentations, but not everyone knows what that markdown is, so I'm just going to cover that quickly first. Markdown is a way to write formatted documents in plain text, which is text that doesn't have extra information in it about fonts and colours and things like that. This is useful because you can then describe a document's structure and the meaning of its elements without deciding exactly how it's going to be displayed. So this is what it would usually look like. So you'd have these sort of hashes mean title. So that means, okay, this is a title, a secondary title. This is a primary title, like a little star, and a space is a bullet point, and then there's some other things. There's quite a few other different things that you can do. So it's a standard that's adopted by developers. And an application can look at this code and decide what those headings are going to look like, what size, what font, or they can make them standard. But they can do all sorts of different things to display that and match the size of the screen. And that's one of the reasons I'm interested in this, is because soon I want to take CueCam to be able to do sort of vertical video, horizontal video without having to change any of that content. Point is, it's easy for a human to read Markdown, but it's also easy for a computer to work with and understand. So stick with me and I'll explain why this is relevant to 2.0. I got ahead of it myself, then I went off script. I need to stay on script. But what's new in CueCam 2.0? Well, the main thing is we have a brand new editor. So after a big Hacker News thread and some conversations with my first paying customers, I saw how the first version slide and teleprompter editor had a big problem. It wasn't clear how to see what your audience was going to see. So some people were saying, I don't really understand. Ree Anderson says, yeah, I guess it's better than title H1. It's a different way of thinking about it, and it's a bit less sort of in the way. You can sort of focus on the text and you're not sort of getting distracted by all the letters and things. So yeah, the old version, I'd added a hodgepodge of presentation features over time, and they're all used in slightly different ways, so it wasn't clear. So you'd have sort of like a special title field, and then you'd add bullets in a different way with stars, and I'd have these little pop-up editors, and they'd pop out, and it was sort of like, and then you sort of had to know to activate this is the camera preview area, but it's not showing a camera, but you had to sort of know to sort of, to sort of preview the camera while you're editing so that you could see what that was going to look like, but it wasn't that clear. And also the sort of options were pretty inflexible. You had a title, you had bullets, and then I was sort of starting to throw in the odd hidden, the odd hidden tag, but it wasn't great. So CueCam 2.0 has a whole new presentation editor with real-time preview, markdown style syntax for building slides for experts, and a new set of layout templates for anyone that doesn't want to sort of use the markdown. So I've completely revamped the entire user interface to make it feel a lot more logical and self-explanatory, at least compared to the old version. So we've got these slide layouts. You can see we've got a new live camera, so you just you don't have to you had to make a empty document before to use the live camera. Now you can just jump in, and also this makes more sense for the free tier. So now to use the free tier, just jump into the live camera, you can use it, and then if you do build a presentation, it's going to sort of show a watermark if you press play on that presentation now. The iOS integration is a bit clearer, so now there's like a pop-up area at the top. I can sort of highlight those. There's a little pop up on the toolbar, so you can sort of see, okay, my iPad's connected and there's all my things. We have got more AI and image generation features. So before you could generate a script sort of at the top level, but now you can say, give me 3 cards about this, give me some image prompts, and then you can also sort of generate images per card, just by typing in your own prompts. So that can be a nice way to do things. And I'm going to talk more about the design changes later, but first I want to give you a bit of background on the project. So why did I make this thing? So my goal when making CueCam Presenter was to make it easy to run presentations that go beyond a basic webcam without getting bogged down in complex AV production software or running multiple interconnected apps, just to be able to throw a title or a picture on the screen. I wanted to take away that friction that comes from sort of, can you see my screen, and the awkwardness of giving a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom. This is my big pet peeve of these. You've got your presentation here, and then your speaker is in this little like green box up here, and I just can't stand it. It's like I can listen to someone for half an hour and I wouldn't recognize them if I bumped into them in the street, and that's crazy, because they might have been saying some really interesting stuff, and it's literally happened to me as well, like after complaining about it. I also wanted to make audio a priority, so you could easily see whether you're too loud or quiet, and I wanted to make it easy to include the sound from a video or other app that you might be sharing. I wanted to encompass some of the best practices and amazing ideas I'd seen for looking good on remote video, mostly gleaned from Office Hours Global, where I do this app lab on after hours, without requiring all the expertise, configuration, or a complex pre-flight checklist to do it. Some of the inspirations were David Paskin, who came onto my podcast, Can You See My Screen, like a couple of years ago, and sort of showed how you can sort of bring yourself into the frame a lot more and bring content into the frame. Nick Jashishkin uses Unreal Engine to make these crazy things, and that's sort of like the inspiration behind Aside 3D, where I just wanted a simple version of that lets you sort of just move out the way in that sort of 3D space. And I really liked when I saw his stuff, but you see he's got all sorts of crazy things going on. And then I really enjoyed Cindy Drozda's presentation. So she does wood turning, and there's links in the blog post to videos, to all these videos, but I should have put a video in here, but as I said, 5 hours editing this script already. She has this really nice thing. So she goes into the green screen, sort of overlaid on the overhead camera, and then when she's sort of not on the green screen, the same way I am, she's sort of got the workshop behind, and so this is kind of what I've got. I've sort of started doing that as well. I don't really usually have anything behind me. I just have this backdrop, so I just sort of took a picture of it and put it behind me. But yeah, I think this is a really cool way of being able to stay sort of immersed in the content. And I wanted to make it really easy to edit presentations that look as good as this. And to start doing that, I had to find a way to separate content from presentation. So, like any decent software developer, I always want to do this. But what is content? In this context, it just means the words, the pictures, the videos, and any other cues that are required as part of a specific deck. And then a presentation means, like, how does that content get onto the screen and get into the virtual mic? And usually you'd use software like OBS and eCam, but that sort of mixes your content, which is like the stuff you want to say that time, with the presentation, which is like, I'm going to have a camera here, I'm going to have this microphone, I'm going to have this plugged into this, and you sort of end up with a bit of a mixture. So I ended up like my OBS and eCam profiles were littered with these scenes that I'd used in a single presentation, but I was then sort of afraid to throw away in case I needed to do the presentation again or some version of it in the future. So you end up sort of building up all this bloat of just sort of single-use content inside your presentation software. And sometimes it's sort of like optimized to keep that loaded just so you can switch quickly. So, those things might be a video or a title, just a title that I just needed once, or a chart or something. But I just didn't want my AV software to be this awkward mix of content and camera configuration. Also, like, you end up with sort of Keynote deck as well, and you're green screening that into eCam, and then you're having to switch out of eCam into Keynote for a bit and then switch back into eCam. Like, it felt complicated to me, and I did do it. Like, my first appearance on Office Hours Global, in fact, that's how I was doing it. But I can have green in my content, and I saw an opportunity to create something that made that a lot easier. I wanted to make the content portable. So I wanted document bundles that could be sent to someone else instead of a link to some assets and some instructions on how to use them, which is the usual situation. Let me just make sure that picture is coming up. Where is my picture? I just want to come back to where I was. Sorry, it's just like the picture didn't come up. I was like, come on, I want to see that picture. It's a cool picture. Bundles. I wanted to be able to throw up a graphic or a video or a title or some bullet points without disappearing into that tiny thumbnail. I wanted to be able to edit those without having to grab my mouse and start dragging and dropping and right-clicking and rearranging text boxes or choosing font sizes. I just wanted to be able to sort of think about what I was going to say. And yeah, I just wanted to plan these loose talking points or the exact words I wanted to say so that I could speak confidently without losing my thread the way I am now. Like, I wanted to be able to focus on the writing and not on the sort of like authoring and trying to make it look good at the same time. And then I wanted to be able to draw on the screen via my iPad, we've got other things, so we can draw on the screen and do all sorts of, like fun things here with Video Pencil. And I wanted that to work without you having to set up like NDI and like know all the secret steps that you have to do. And when you do it sort of via NDI, you'll get this ghosting, whereas when you delete it on the iPad, it will sort of flicker for a minute. But if you're not familiar with Video Pencil, basically I'm seeing myself on the iPad, and when I draw, I can see, I can see what I'm drawing, I can see what I look like, and it's also a remote control. So if I want to go to my next slide, without the Stream Deck, I can go tap and come to Shoot. So with Shoot, I wanted to be able to use my iPhone as a webcam and control all my camera settings directly from CueCam. So I do have a browser-based remote control feature for Shoot. But I felt like, well, why don't we just sort of, I've started networking all these devices, let's just do this directly and include it in CueCam instead of having this browser-based subscription. And I wanted a teleprompter. I wanted to be able to see my notes without looking away from my camera, like I'm reading my script right now. I wanted to be able to see myself or whoever I was talking to, and for them to see me looking directly back. So if I'm on a video call, I can sort of maintain eye contact and still be sort of checking my notes. I wanted to see my carefully worded podcast introduction and then not have to tape it on a bit of paper to the bottom of my camera. I wanted to be able to see my interview questions. I wanted one window to drag into my teleprompter that showed me everything I needed to know, and also do things like see my audio levels, and it sort of flashes a red border if I'm too loud, or like orange if I'm pushing it a little bit. So I always know that I'm at the right volume, and I've got this little head-up display the whole time. And I just wanted one button to press, or a foot pedal. I didn't want to have to remember a load of keyboard shortcuts or set up a load of Stream Deck buttons, right? I just wanted to run through a card and then press next without having to stop and think, which button means next. You see, as soon as I sort of went out like off script, I had to sort of go, and even with this. And I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to be able to run these decently produced live streams from an Airbnb using just my Mac, iPhone and iPad and like a wireless mic maybe and some headphones. And yeah, I did. This is what it looked like. So this is me sort of in an Airbnb, iPhone on a selfie stick, iPad next to it as my view. Yeah, and I was just able to do something that looks pretty much like this, just anywhere, with the minimum of equipment. I wanted to be able to share my screen with audio. I wanted to be able to show stuff off on my computer because I'm always doing stuff on the computer. But actually, like getting sound in is always a bit sketchy, and I was a bit scared to do it. But I wanted to be able to just, bring up my audio production software or something with one click and let you hear it. I wanted to be able to jump into this weird sort of art piece that I've made with a game engine. And I just wanted this to be a stress-free experience. And so, as you can imagine, this took a lot of tech. CueCam Presenter goes pretty deep across a lot of different technologies, the audio, video stuff, GPU accelerated graphics, shaders, bespoke cross-device networking, and then parallel development of 2 iOS apps alongside the Mac app and all the protocols that connect them. So yeah, I managed to basically make that. So the October 2023, I did a soft launch of CueCam 1. I think that's the day. I haven't double checked it. So I was moving to a new city. I had a baby coming. And so I tried to meet these deadlines to launch the new app. And after, I've been doing this professionally for 20 years now. And I'm usually pretty good at knowing how long something will take. But this app, it just kept taking longer. And it was so big that perfectionism just really wasn't an option. And I had so many ideas for tweaks and improvements and new features that it was quite hard to stop. Like one Saturday I added music playback. I thought it'd be cool if you could play some background music, and because I've always had issues with how it's handled in other software, and I was like, I just want to be able to start it from one card and fade it, and then fade it up and stop it from another card. That would be great. So I sort of throw something together, and then I spend the next week ironing out all the bugs. And I should have waited post-launch, but I just couldn't help myself. And so there was a lot of tension between the requirements of a minimum viable product and something that did all the things I wanted for my weekly live streams. So I could have given you something much simpler, but I think it's one of those things where it's got lots of hidden nooks and crannies that I made for me that probably most people aren't going to use. But then at the same time, it's got to sort of be approachable. But yeah, after a few months of work, it was time to put it in front of the paying customers and get some real feedback. And thankfully, I got that. I got some paying customers and I got a lot of feedback. So I should mention that at no point was I working in a silo here. I knew there were people who wanted this app at every stage, having built a community around Shoot, Video Pencil, BeatSheet, and other less successful apps on Squares TV. It wasn't like previous big projects that I did that just went nowhere because I didn't talk to anyone. I spent a lot of time talking to my community. But it did slow things down. I'd initially named the app, for example, BeatSheet Studio, because it sort of shares a code base with BeatSheet, even though it sort of also brings in a load of stuff from another app called Video Pencil Camera that I'd made to connect your iPad to. But a week before I was hoping to launch, someone said, how much do you like that name? And I just realized that I hadn't really given it a lot of thought. And now it was pretty obvious that it wasn't the right name. So I spent a week coming up with a better name, and then another week or two changing the name. And it's not trivial. And some early beta testers that I have still have a problem with this unremovable camera extension as a result of this name change. You have to rewind the version. Naming things is hard, and it does annoy me every time that I work on the website or the CueCam source code that is still called BeatSheet behind the scenes. At some point I've got to rename the project, and that's scary because who knows what it will break. But the main thing was to get the most important features working and make sure that great results, right, were at least achievable if you knew what to do with it, despite the lack of documentation. So the problem of documentation is I've always found it difficult to create documentation. This project has actually helped me put my finger on exactly why. Because as soon as you write down the steps involved in doing something, you realize that you could make it better with just a little change. And then one or two of those steps could be skipped. So instead of writing a user guide or making videos that in my mind would soon be redundant, I'd spend a week making something easier to do And then rarely do I actually write any documentation at all, because I'm worried that I'll end up losing another week to another rounds of improvements if I try. I think that's sort of, it's like every time it kind of like blows up, and then I'm sort of scared to touch it again. But it needs to be done. So I keep adding features and leaning on my weekly live streams, Discord server and release notes to let people know about the changes, but that's pretty bad for people who are coming to the app for the first time. And at the same time, like, I'm in getting these cycles of feedback. So I like to get on video calls with my users, and I started doing this more after CueCam 1.0 was released, but each call resulted in a cycle of usability improvements and feature additions similar to those generated by the documentation stuff. Like, I'd talk to someone, I'd see them struggling with it and be like, oh God, it needs to be like this, not that. And then like one of those conversations ended up, I was like, I just need to make a live preview, and that completely went into months of work, and now here we are at 2.0 with the results of that single conversation. So it's great that the app is getting better, and I'm getting a better idea of how to explain things to users, but it can feel like wading through treacle sometimes. I just wish I could say, here's how to do X, without saying, but I want to make it work like Y, which would be super cool. If I can conceive of an easier way something could be made possible, I start to feel guilty about giving people a more difficult way to do it. So in February, I was a bit scared knowing the level of potential scrutiny to which I was exposing myself. I finally posted my work to Hacker News with Show HN. And I was pretty happy to get such solid engagement. People could see the value in the project and started trying it out, and they gave me some really good ideas, and I've already implemented a few of them. Some people were saying, it's higher quality video if I'm sharing over the screen share, which I was allergic to, but why not give you a window that you can share as a screen share that's still got you in it? And we sort of solve the problem. We have a different codec. Sometimes you do want to take over the call with your presentation, but this way you can do it and still be in it. You don't have that thumbnail issue. And then, stuff like I had the suggestion of attaching, video pencil drawings per slide. So if I sort of draw, if I, draw something, if I go to the next slide and then come back, it's still there. Look, so I can kind of navigate through, and I can kind of get back to my previous drawings now. So as more people discussed my app through the framing of presentation software, though, some design flaws came into focus. It's called CueCam Presenter, but in my mind, it's still this sort of, bastard love child of beat sheet and video pencil camera, neither of which look anything like Keynote or PowerPoint. So I decided it was high time for CueCam to transcend its beat sheet roots and start resembling traditional presentation software a bit more. I started fiddling about with a sort of large document preview and edit in place text boxes, which was sort of tricky on its own. And then it was quite awkward to get it working, but something else was making me a bit uncomfortable. I never really wanted CueCam to be like PowerPoint, full of sort of RSI-inducing misaligned text boxes. There was a reason that the existing version used a bit of markdown style syntax instead of turning everything into this sort of floating form field that you can put anywhere. I looked at some other apps on stream like Prezi and next to some more developer-oriented stuff like sort of markdown presentation tools that I'd seen. And I noticed that I was falling between two stools here. There's a code-based approach that you can do, but that usually benefits from syntax highlighting and live previews. Or a WYSIWYG solution will show you what you're getting as you type it. So I wasn't really doing either of those things, and it just made it all very confusing if you weren't me, especially when the teleprompter came into play. I did sort of spend a little bit of time trying to, I'll have my teleprompter content here, and then I'll have my slide content here, and then, images or whatever here. But I ran into this problem that is very familiar to programmers. I wanted some of my slide content to appear in the teleprompter in the same way as my speaker notes. But if I separated out the two, then I'd have to enter everything twice. So if I want my speaker notes to say, this is the heading, this is the content, and then I've also got to add that here, now I've got heading, the same heading, in two places. And it becomes really messy. And I realized that I actually want to fully commit to the code style script editor instead of trying to sort of introduce all those edit in place things and sort of that Keynote style thing. I wanted to do it in a sort of code way and just let you type stuff in. So I realized, key to the success of this approach would be the use of syntax highlighting and a live preview, which no developer would, work without. And I sort of made a little prototype, put it in front of my non-technical partner, and she got it immediately. And that just gave me the confidence to just sort of like go all in on that approach. And also John During got me thinking about the word program. Like a TV show is a program, and we program a computer, and like a presentation is kind of is a program, right? So it makes perfect sense that the lessons of programming would apply to, the other kind of programming. It's the same with script writing. It's another kind of program with a syntax of its own. If you've used a tool like Final Draft, then you'll be familiar with that sort of Hollywood script style with the sort of like dialogue, action, all the little sort of tags they have at the start of a scene, X'd, all that stuff. So it's sort of like you're kind of programming it. So it made sense. As a computer programmer, as I say, I would never work without syntax highlighting, so why would I inflict this on my non-technical app users? And so this is what the new CueCam editor aims to provide, a focus on writing absolute clarity about what will appear in the teleprompter and what will be seen by the audience. But text is hard, right? Building a good text editor is not easy. It looks like the easiest thing from when it works, but there's so many ways it can be weird and wrong because, characters are crazy, and character encoding and layout is such a complicated thing. You have to have tried it to really understand, but I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but I did want to use the best frameworks Apple has to offer. TextKit 2 is Apple's recently introduced reimagining of decades-old infrastructure. Unfortunately, it's under-documented, and while it's powerful in isolation, where you have full control over all the text layout and everything that happens, but it sort of falls into a kind of Sherlock Holmes detective territory when you try and figure out what's going on inside an NS text view. NS Text View is Apple's text editor component. I need some water. It uses TextKit 2, but it also supports TextKit 1 and can be switched to the legacy implementation automatically at runtime if the developer isn't careful. And I know this is getting technical, but I wanted Apple to do the heavy lifting of managing keyboard input, focus, selection, undo, and just add a sprinkle of syntax highlighting into the mix. I wanted to embed Swift UI controls into the flow of text. And so I was grateful for Marcin Krysanowski's work on ST Text View, as he took on a lot of that painful reverse engineering required to figure out what was going on, so I didn't have to. So I got my solution to do most of what I wanted, but at a certain point the lack of source code access became pretty insurmountable, so I had to make a couple of compromises. And it's weird the stuff you end up having to do yourself. This is the code for selection highlighting. So when you select some text, I have to literally draw that myself, because I overrode something that's crazy. Hold on a sec. So, but yeah, initially I did approach this code editor with a full Markdown, because Markdown is a standard. So I sort of found an editor that had Markdown support, which was, I thought, don't reinvent the wheel. But while that's fine for things like titles and bullets and block quotes, it starts to feel really fussy once you get into some of the more esoteric syntax. I'm sort of, let me put that on the screen. So things like, let me just put this up. Yeah, so things like sort of titles, block quotes. But yeah, it starts to get fussy when you get into sort of this image format, like an exclamation mark, images. It just gets kind of weird. Can you see that? Are you seeing that? This exclamation mark images and footnotes are kind of complicated as well. And I didn't really think that was necessary for what I was doing. And I did sort of, when my partner was playing with the editor, she accidentally deleted a white space character and the title disappeared. And so stuff that's second nature to me as a programmer feels very annoying to someone that's not. So I decided to take inspiration from Markdown, but created my own minimal syntax. So, clear text, stuff with no text, which actually isn't on this slide. You don't put anything. And then we've got headings, we've got secondary headings, we've got basically, tertiary headings or paragraph text, and these just render at sort of progressively smaller sizes. Bullet points with the stars, and then images are just an exclamation mark. Quotations, I sort of do a little syntax like that, and then footnotes. So you can see I sort of like take cues from Markdown, and then you can put actually comments on if you want something that doesn't go in the teleprompter or the slide content, just if you want to sort of add some notes to the person making the presentation. And then so I in some ways it would have saved me a lot of headaches if I'd just made the whole CueCam script into a single text view instead of breaking it up into these different cards. Because the scrolling has been a pain, because I've got all these loads. Usually you just have one giant text field and scroll down it and everything would be beautiful. But I've got all these different text fields that can all be different sizes, so I have to measure the right size and lay them out properly every time, depending on how much text is in there. And that's a lot of extra stuff and performance to worry about. And so I did think, maybe it's just one big text field, but actually the cue card metaphor is too useful. So, a single button next navigation is only possible by having discrete cards. Having that next button to press becomes difficult if you have to scroll the teleprompter. When do you change the slides? How is the scroll controlled? If you have continuous scrolling, you'd need a separate interaction with a mouse or trackpad, or you'd set it at a constant speed, which would prevent mixing cards containing verbatim phrasing and other cards with looser notes. Speech recognition-based scrolling would have a similar problem. I don't want to have to type precisely every word I'm planning to say every time. So I need to put a lot of time into the fuzzy logic required to make that feel natural. And then the card metaphor also offers itself to alternative use cases like video sequencing. Subscribers to the CueCam YouTube channel will know that John During loves this. We can drag in a few video clips and navigate between them, or bring in B-roll or special reports and wait for them to finish. Triggers can be attached to cards, and it's clear when they'll fire. Cards can be dragged and dropped and selected and duplicated and deleted, and everything makes sense. So I figured out other ways to optimize some of the compromised scrolling instead of changing the entire mental model. CueCam had a concept of layout before that really meant alignment, like left, right, center, lower third, upper third. And I realized I could solve a lot of confusion by introducing a proper slide layout drop down to show how I recommend CueCam cards are used. So now it's easy to see what CueCam can do and start building on sample content in the style of a more traditional presentation tool. So yeah, we're at 2.0, 4 months. I did a soft launch in October, November, and then sort of I call the Hacker News posts sort of more of the proper launch. But it seems a bit soon, but my hand was forced a little bit because CueCam's document format has this, before there was a separation between some of the slide content and the text of the document, but now it's all controlled by the document, by the text of the card. Which means that the files aren't compatible. Well, they're not backwards compatible, which means that if you use the new version, then it, you sort of break your scripts for the older version. The new editor offers much more flexibility, allowing you arbitrary combinations of slide elements, sort of like image, text, title. You can sort of add a few different things and it'll just kind of deal with it. And it's only really background images and video attachments that are the exceptions, things that just take up the whole background. And this meant that I did, have breaking changes in the editor. So, I'm copying the titles into the card text from the slide. And if you open a script, you get duplicated titles in the old version. So by the rules of Semver, the new version couldn't be 1.1 and needed to be 2.0. It's only been a few months, but I don't make the rules up, do I? So there you go. I have a note on non-App Store distribution. I've been shipping apps in Apple's App Store since iOS 2 for 15 years. And I do appreciate their motivation to limit spam on their platforms, but their restrictions can make a lot of extra legwork and inflexibility in certain areas. I've found this most annoying when it comes to pricing. Because if I go on a podcast or live stream, I'm almost always asked if I can offer a discount to listeners, but Apple only lets me change the price for everyone at once. So they offer specific mechanisms for certain types of discounts or trials or promo codes, but rarely does that match up with what I actually want to do or what people are asking me for. So distributing CueCam outside the App Store and billing with Stripe gives me a lot more flexibility. So I can offer my own education discounts. I can make a deal with one customer to buy bulk licenses. I can credit customers' accounts based on their previous purchases of my other apps. I can make promo codes for a specific audience, and I can do this all through, it's a bit more work for me on the server, but it lets me do a much better job of serving my users. Thankfully, Apple still allows us to legitimately distribute apps outside the App Store on macOS with notarization, giving users the reassurance that they're not installing anything too malicious. And really, as you saw, that was some of the stuff that was going on in that video I showed at the top. The only thing I really miss is the user ratings. I do need to figure out how to handle ratings and reviews, because at the moment it feels like you kind of have to trust me more than you would if you were going through the App Store. And I'm kind of relying on video testimonials. Oh, my camera. Come on. Sometimes it doesn't I think the weight of the... I'm just going to turn it off and on again. The weight of the Elgato prompter, I think, is a touch too much for my Canon and on the end of a long lens, so sometimes it gets a bit stressed. But yeah, I'd love to figure out user rating, normal user ratings, and I haven't quite found a solution. I signed up to one thing and it was so spammy, and they wanted to get on a call with me and get on a call, so I just need to figure out how to get some sort of reviews on there, so you're 5 stars, lovely. But yeah, calling this version 2 has been a great license to reorganize the app and put things in their logical homes, do a bit of housekeeping. So I've created that new live camera option, so you don't have to create a blank script just to use the virtual camera. I've consolidated audio and video settings into this one dashboard, which I think looks lovely. So now you've got your audio up there, you've got your mic, your headphones, your outputs, and then all audio stuff appears there, sort of where you want it. You want to be able to sort of grab that quickly, especially if there's some sound that you want to interrupt or something. But yeah, I'm really happy with that, how that looks. And then you've got your normal sort of sharing stuff there as well. And don't forget that you can also see that within scripts now as well, and also that's in the Mac's status bar. I brought ChatGPT script features into the script editor so that you can get help on in-progress scripts, including generating images. I've made the shoot and video pencil integration look a bit more obvious by putting the buttons in the main toolbar and showing you what's connected. I've simplified the sidebars, so this sidebar here is now just like thumbnail previews. So before, the thumbnail sort of sat on the card like that, and sometimes there was one and sometimes there wasn't. Now I've just got the flexible content is on there, and then I've got my you can just scroll through those and drag them around on the sidebar, and that feels a lot neater to me, and it's faster as well. I've been tweaking and refining and optimizing. I think you'll find the new version opens up a whole world of possibilities. Most importantly, I have been listening. Whether I've spoken to you face to face or I read your comments on the internet, I've been listening. Every new person I put this in front of has a different perspective, but I'm finally honing in on something that I think everyone can understand. CueCam Presenter 2.0 is out now. You can download it for free from CueCamPresenter.com, and there'll be a link nearby. You don't even need to sign in to use the free version, right? You can get the whole virtual camera, sharing, all that, zoom in. The only thing that it does is it puts a sort of bouncing watermark if you're not signed in. Shall I show you that? I'll sign out. Yeah, there you go. So this is what you get if you're not signed in. And let me see if it will let me. Oh no. I've got to try and sign in again now. Live signing in. It's going to my wrong Arc profile, so I just need to try that one more time. Sign in. All right. So yeah, if you have feedback, I'd love to see you in the Discord, where we have threads for issues and suggestions. And if you want a one-to-one demo or invite me onto a podcast, you can email me michael@squares.tv, which I should really put on the screen. I'll put that on the screen in a bit as part of the stream. So thank you. Right, let's see if the next button puts us back. Hey, we just jumped between two scripts. There's some this is one of the latest things I added. So I've got my one script as a thing, and then I've got my sort of live show script somewhere else. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you've got any sort of comments, suggestions, I'll hold on for a minute. If there's anyone on Zoom or if there's anyone on YouTube, feel free to jump in. Let's see if anyone's actually watching. Yeah, a couple. Yeah, I think we've got a small crowd, but this video hopefully more people will see once the blog post goes on to Hacker News. I wanted to attach. I saw someone had. I read a post last week on Hacker News via Hacker Newsletter, and someone had put at the top of their blog post, "You can listen to this as a podcast." And I was like, "That's a good idea. Let's do that." Because sometimes I don't want to read. Sometimes I just want to listen and work out, at the same time. So, yeah, what I haven't done is once again, I failed to line up something to play us out with. This is the Discord, squares.tv/Discord. You can go and sort of ask for features, create threads for features. I track it all. You can go and get help. And then michael@squares.tv is is the easiest place to contact me. I reply to everyone, and I will, if you need to get on a call, I can get on a call with you. I'm happy to do that. The value of the sort of advantage of not being like consumer priced, to being a little bit more expensive, is you get my time as a result. Instead of, if it was like $2.99 a month, then I might have too many users to actually do that with. So get it while it's fresh, and I can support you. I am gonna we're finishing up. Let me. I had plans for what I was going to do to play us out, but I'm just going to go onto my computer, Video Masters. And hopefully this week is going to go. I'll share my desktop so you can see what we're looking at. Did I just see hey, if you're on YouTube, please if you want. To play us out, shall we have the Peanuts song? Or shall we have Swimming into Darkness Trap remix? Might be a bit intense. Shall we have Alien Techno again? Shall we have the Shoebox? Shall we have She's Just Too Much? I think I'm gonna, to play us out, we're gonna have this weird music video I commissioned a couple of years. I don't know, 20. Don't know what year it was, but it's not the most amazing thing you've seen in your life, but I think it could be worth a look. So let's just. I'm gonna remove the other thing. I'm gonna drag it onto the card. Is it gonna work? Let's try dragging it onto there. No, that's not working. Come on. I am going to, I'm just going to select it, add video. I'm going to select, because I don't know, sometimes iCloud makes it weird. Oh yeah, it's still downloading, that's why. It's too big. I see a comment on, I just heard a comment. Another great lab, thanks Lorenzo, appreciate it. I shall put this up. And then I'm just waiting for this, it's not showing me that it's not downloaded. But I don't think it's downloaded. It's all these are on iCloud, so we've got to sort of wait for them. I wonder if this one will play. I'll play you out with this weird little video. How about that? So here's a hot tip for CueCam. If there's a video, because when you drag in a video, it usually converts it. But I made it so you can hold Alt this week. So if you don't want to wait for it to convert, you can drag it like this. So I'm just going to drag that onto the card, holding Alt, and it's going to say embed this video. I'm going to say embed without converting, even though it's 400 megabytes. And then I'm going to play us out. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope you'll give it a go. This is 2020 walking through London. We sort of walked into London in June. I filmed it, and then this track was just a modular synth improvisation that I recorded, but I think it's all right. So this is what's going to play us out today. See you next time. Like and subscribe, download the app, join the Discord. See you soon. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. Oh, I was playing a different song.
She washes away all of the pressure of the day. She makes me forget all of the things that I had come to hate. She polishes white my bloodshot eyes. She makes me speak without compromise. switches my head from day to night. She's just too much, she's just too much. She's just too much.
Too many colors and designer labels. Let me on the country, you can put me on the table. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want.
Too much.
I'm a sinner and 100 years old. Take me to a party and I'm bubbly and cold. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want.
Too much. Together we aren't afraid of anything. Together we can beat about anything. And we can see the truth about everything. And someday she sees me first thing in the morning. She lets me ask for what I really want. She opens the door so I can see what I couldn't see before. She makes me feel so warm. Inhibition's gone, she takes me through to the dawn. Saying, come on, let's have fun, let's have fun. Yeah, she's just too much. She's just too much. She's just too much.
Run me really short, you can run me really long. You can run me really strong with a wall in my bubble. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. You can put me in a prison, you can run me in a room, you can run me in a pit. So run me really fast. Tell me what you want.
I paid someone on the internet to produce that video, and I am not happy with it. But I hope you enjoyed the song. Cheers, everyone. Bye.